have flaws. We're not perfect. I'm going to tell you all a story. Now, it's a story I think many of you have probably heard before. But it's a story that you haven't heard this way. You haven't heard it this way. I'm going to tell this story, and you know how it ends. You know how it ends. You know the story probably very well. If you're a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, you probably know this story very well, but you haven't heard it the way I'm about to tell it. I'm going to tell it this way. Once upon a time, in a galaxy pretty close by, God decided to create human beings. God had already made the heavens and the earth. God had already made the fishes of the sea and the animals of the land. God decided, I'm gonna do something different here with human beings. I'm gonna make a creature that is unlike any creature I've ever made before. I am going to create a creature that is in my own image. In my own image. Now, what does that mean? It means I'm going to create a creature that, just like I do, has a spark of creative power. It won't be like a beaver. It won't be like an ant. I'm going to make a creature that has creative power, that has the ability to force the environment to serve it, to constantly be reinventing the way it interacts with nature. I am going to create a creature with this godlike ability to create, with a brain, with a soul. I'm going to create a special kind of creature. But this power that human beings have is very dangerous. So I'm going to guide them very carefully on how they can use it. And I'm going to very carefully tell them that as they mature, I'm going to guide them in learning how to harness their creative power. I'm going to guide them. They're not going to be allowed to just start creating on their own. I'm not going to hand a gun to a baby. I'm not going to do that, right? I'm going to gradually work them up to the point that they'll be able to use their creative power for good. For good. I'm going to work them up to the point that they know what creativity is about, they know what creative power is about, and that they'll use it explicitly for good. I'm going to warn them. I'm going to warn them not to stray from the path that I've chosen for them. Don't just go create things on your own. Don't just go discovering things on your own. We have to walk this road together. God said to man, we have to walk this road together. When you're ready, I will reveal certain things to you. When you have matured and gotten to the point that you understand it, I will give you certain powers. You have to walk this road together. We have to walk this road together. You and me, we have to walk on this road together. And there are certain things you're not ready for. And there are certain fruits that it is not time for you to bite into. And the time will come for you to bite into those fruits, but we're not there yet. There will come a time for you to overturn certain leaves. There will come a time for you to know certain things, but you're not there yet. And I'm going to raise you up. I'm going to raise you up to use this creative power, this spark of creativity, this ability to exist in the image of God. I'm going to raise you up so that you use it in a pure way, untainted by the animalism that is within you. Because you're not God. You are, to some degree or other, an animal, but you have this special spark. You have this special ability. And so God is saying, I will help you understand what it means to be godlike. I will help you understand what it means to be creative. I will help you to understand how to use your creative power, how to use your ability of imagination. And I will help you to gradually use it in a rational way. But human beings didn't listen. We had this creative power. We had this desire to have more. We had this desire to find out hidden truths, to know how to interact with the environment. We had it. And it was too much for us. We couldn't contain our creative power. We couldn't contain our creativity. We couldn't contain our desire to have knowledge of good and evil. And we couldn't learn to use our human abilities and our unique human capacity in lockstep with how God wanted us to learn it. Instead, we went and we ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We asked questions we shouldn't have asked. And we rushed into things, and we learned things we were not yet ready to know. And we experienced things we were not yet ready to experience. And this gift that was given to us as human beings, this ability to do things that no other species had ever done before, this ability to reinvent our relationship with nature and change the way we interact with our environment, this uniquely human creative power, this being in the image of God, this spark of godliness, this creative ability that human beings have, it was a gift. But it was a gift that became a curse. And it led to us cutting ourselves off from the very God that gave it to us. We have spent 5,000-6,000 years reinventing our relationship with nature, striving to a higher plane of existence, building bigger towers, advancing human technology, all while we strive to get back to where we once were. We strive to get back to not being at odds and not being separated from the beautiful force of power that created us. And as we've gotten better, we've also become more aware of the pain of not having what we should have, not having that connection with the force, the power that created us. Frankenstein. You ever read Frankenstein? It's a great book. Famous book, written by Mary Shelley. Mary Shelley's mother, Mary Wollstonecraft, was a very famous advocate for the rights of women. Mary Shelley was married to an amazing poet called Shelley, the poet Shelley. And Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley, the daughter of a great feminist, the wife of an amazing revolutionary poet, she wrote a novel that is considered to be the first science fiction novel in the history of the world. You ever heard of it? It's called Frankenstein. And the novel Frankenstein tells the story of a scientist who goes and does something that has never been done before. He makes a human being. He creates his own human being. He digs up a bunch of body parts, and he digs up a brain, and he digs up an arm, and he sews them all together, and he hooks them up to electricity, and he waits for a big thunderstorm, and he makes a human being all of his own. He makes a man. But this man that he creates, he never provides for it. Doesn't give it a place in the world, doesn't provide it with anything that it needs. And it becomes a monster that horrifies the world. So he spends years trying to track down his creation. The point of the novel is exactly the same point that's being made in the story of the Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve. That with our creative power as human beings and with our unique human innovation, if we don't have truth, and we don't have goodness, and we don't have love, it doesn't mean anything. Dr. Frankenstein is so caught up in the fact that he made a man, he created a person. He forgets that if you bring a life into this world, you have to give it love. You have to give it something. You can't just create. With creation comes responsibility.